But the issue is, like, I don't want to hire a person and spend on it.
I agree. I agree. Okay, I gotta go because I'm gonna be on public in about a minute. All right, you can call, by the way, you can call me before the meeting if you like tomorrow, I'll be up. Okay, all right, thanks. See you, bye.
Yeah, he gave me like an amnesty, like some kind of local or whatever, so it didn't hurt too much. I'm good. Funny, I text my siblings. Yeah. Why, since I'm the old one, since I'm the guinea pig, at least you know, I'm like the oldest guy. But it might have got stimulated like that when you used to do real work outdoors doing ironwork.
Okay, we will call to order the City of Laguna Beach Planning Commission for January 21st, 2026. Can we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Sadler,
Here.
Commissioner Whiten,
Here.
Commissioner Dubin,
Here.
Chair Pro Tem Goldman,
Here,
Chair Kellenberg.
Here. And Commissioner Goldman, do you have anybody of the public with you?
I do not.
And if anybody shows up, can you notify us, please?
I will.
Thank you. Okay, we have a quorum. We can proceed with the meeting. At this time, we can take an opportunity for anybody of the public who would like to approach the podium and bring up or discuss any issues that are not on the agenda tonight. This is an opportunity to do so. If so, please do so at this time. Okay, I see no one, so we will close the public hearing at this time, and we will move to the consent calendar. Would anybody on the commission like to pull any items from the consent calendar or have any questions about any items on the consent calendar? Would anybody in the public like to pull anything off of the consent calendar? Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Sadler,
Yes.
Commissioner Whiten,
Yes.
Commissioner Dubin,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Goldman,
Yes.
Chair Kellenberg.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, so we have the consent calendar has been approved. We'll now move on to the first public item on the agenda, which is item 5.1. Well, 4.3 is a consent item. So we'll go to 5.1. And so we'll start with the staff giving a presentation on this item. So you may begin. Thank you.
Good evening, Planning Commission. This is Pierre Sawaya, Capital Program Manager in Public Works, here to present on item number 5.1, which is temporary use permit and coastal development permit associated with the West Street Underground Utility Assessment District project. Tonight, a request being made for a temporary use permit to be used at 2 lots located at 31526 and 31532 Coast Highway. These 2 lots are bound by Monterey Street to the east, Catalina Street to the south, and Coast Highway to the west. They consist of 2 privately owned vacant lots, which are currently undeveloped. The lots are approximately 12,000 square feet in total, and they are currently zoned as R1 residential with land use designation Village Low Density. Surrounding land uses consist of residential to the north, the east, and the west, and commercial to the south across the street from Catalina. The TUP requested tonight is to support the West Street Underground utility project, which will be beginning construction here within the next month or so. The 2 parcels that are identified are being requested to be used for storage and a staging area for construction equipment and materials and employee parking for the project contractor. The duration of the TUP would be for an approximate 11-month duration, which would be February next month through the end of the year. In all likelihood, the project contractor will likely pull off before that 11-month duration, but we do want to allow that extended duration just in case we encounter some unforeseen construction challenges or obstacles. The hours to access the site would be 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, and that is excluding city-observed holidays. No access to the site would occur during the nights or on the weekends. Shown on this slide is the proposal layout presented by the contractor for use of the lots. All staging and all materials would be contained within the vacant areas of the lots. There would be a 6-foot-high perimeter fence established with green privacy screens, and that would encompass an approximate 90-foot by 90-foot area, as shown on the exhibit. As mentioned, this lot would be used primarily for material storage, construction equipment, toilet and wash stations, and also employee parking where feasible. A 2-foot by 3-foot project sign will be established on the outside of the site. The sign will identify the project contractor, the use of the site, and provide a name and a contact number for any information. And lastly, the site will implement BMPs as required by the Water Pollution Control Plan established by the contractor to ensure the site remains clean, sediments don't run off, and so on. Shown on this slide are existing site photos. The photo to the left is Monterey Street looking north. The existing palm tree located there will remain in place. However, the project contractor would be required to grub some of the overgrowth that occurred from the recent winter rains and also remove some of the bushes that are central to the site in order to maximize use. The vegetation on the perimeters of the site, as shown on the photo on the left, between the property and the adjacent household will remain in place. Similarly, the photo on the right shows vegetation and bushes at the perimeter at Catalina Street that would also remain in place, which would offer additional screening from the nearby residences. To conclude, this TUP complies with the general plan policies as established in the staff report presented to you. The location of the site is a dedicated staging site for use by the contractor. It's close proximity for construction of the improvements, which will really improve the efficiencies of the contractor to drop materials, conduits, pull boxes, vaults of that nature, and be able to quickly shepherd it back and forth to the areas of activity. It would also provide a dedicated site for the parking of employee vehicles, construction equipment, and that way they're not, out into the public right away. The TUP would minimize impacts to parking and traffic in the neighborhood. That way, as I mentioned, material, equipment are not occupying parking areas or anything in the right of way. They will be more centralized within the staging area in a safe and secure site. And lastly, the TUP would promote safer pedestrian circulation in the right of way by removing those obstacles that would otherwise interfere with pedestrians, dog walkers, and things like that. So tonight's recommendation is that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving the TUP and a coastal development permit, finding the said action exempt from CEQA and subject to the discussion provided in the staff report and the findings and the conditions in the resolution. That concludes this presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. First, before we go to questions from the commission, are there any disclosures?
I spoke with some of the neighbors around the proposed site.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the commission for staff?
The sign that's on the Monterey next to the entrance, I'm assuming falls outside the required sign ordinance provision because it's a city-run project. Is that correct?
Correct. The intention is it really just be an identification sign for the staging lot. So we wanted to make sure we included a visible sign, 2 foot by 3 foot sign, just clearly identifying the use of the lot and the name and the contact number in case residents, visitors have any questions about the use of the site.
Okay. And you say that the worker parking is contained within the site. What do you see in terms of the number of people on site any given day as far as working on the project, and will that accommodate their vehicles?
It likely would not accommodate all employee vehicles. It also depends on the number of crews that the contractor mobilizes for the work. One crew versus 2 or 3 crews could certainly change that dynamic. But the intent would be to use as much of the space that we can for the employee parking on the site. If there is overspill, we would likely direct the contractor to park along portions of Lower Catalina, maybe even Coast Highway. That way they're not taking up too much space within the residential areas or along Monterey Street.
Okay. And, I read the correspondence from the neighbors and their concerns, and they brought up the 5th Street location where the new fire station is going, but I think that they might have even started to demo that building, so it's not yet.
The demo, I don't have that scheduled, but I know the demo is anticipated to occur shortly, followed by construction of a proposed retaining wall
Right.
there, which will happen later this year.
Yeah.
So using that site is not feasible for the purposes of the
Yeah, I didn't
project.
think so either. I just wanted to clarify that for people in the room. That's all I have. Thank you.
Do you think that's a realistic time period to complete the construction?
Yes, so the hope is that if the contractor does mobilize by next month, they can finish their civil improvements, meaning all the underground construction, by the summer and be able to vacate that site. Then it does turn into the utilities mobilizing for their work to do their wiring and to remove the poles and wires, which would extend most likely into the fall or the end of the year. But for the purpose of this TUP, it would be just for the project contractor. Once they're done, they would be out.
And if the contractor needs to extend the construction period, how would we handle that extension? Would they have to come back to us?
In the past, we've done a condition where the director of community development could opt for, a 3-month or a 6-month extension. I think we did that for the Diamond Lot lease for the Woods Cove project, so we could include that condition. Our hope, though, is that providing this 11-month duration would be more than enough time for the contractor to complete their work without the need for an actual extension.
I'm just thinking about recent projects and, the extension of the construction periods. I guess related to that, is there some reason why this couldn't be on the consent calendar? This TUP? Because any public works improvement, such as this undergrounding project, all require a staging area. It's a component of doing the work. And, if we, we're not going to deny it, but if we were to deny it, where would that put the project? It's in the best interests of the public to do this project.
Yeah, so in this case, we do have, well, it's important to have the public hearing as a part of this hearing process for the temporary use permit. When it comes to receiving public communication and potential concerns related to it, we do want to make sure that we're vetting that information, and that's really for the Planning Commission's consideration. It does exceed what would be allowable under the director's determinations as far
But
as a
could-
director TB.
Couldn't that be covered in the consent? I mean, through the consent process?
Sure. I'm not going to say legally it would be prohibited to go on consent. Something like this with public commentary, we felt that's typically not the type of projects or applications that we put on consent. It's usually, once again, items that you guys have already heard and directed us to come. And then outside of that, I'm trying to think the minutes. I can't recall for this commission the last time we put a discretionary decision at the very outset without any previous discussion or direction from the Planning Commission on consent. I'm going to look to, Mr. Vieira, who is in the crowd, giving me the thumbs up, who used to sit to my left. Thank you, Chair.
Other
Thank you.
questions?
Or we
Yes,
You have more? Or you
no.
Okay.
The proposed entry/exit gate area, is that going to require the removal of any existing vegetation?
Only really clearing and grubbing of what's been overgrown there from the recent rains.
Okay.
But otherwise, there is like a small unimproved driveway access that would allow the contractor to install that entry gate.
Okay. And you explained about the West Street site, but other than that, I mean, I'm assuming that the city explored the possibility of other locations and looked at other potential options and came upon the conclusion that this was the best suited site.
Correct. There are other vacant lots actually down the street on Monterey Street, but it is only one lot. It's smaller. We felt that this site with two parcels would afford more space for the contractor and really, again, to have a dedicated site for the materials, for the equipment, in the sense that it's not overflowing into the streets where we don't have to. Also being within the neighborhood where the construction is occurring, it's really an ideal scenario for the contractor. It'll improve their efficiencies and their ability to get their job done.
Okay. And apparently there's a school bus pickup and drop off site or spot that's nearby this potential site. How is this city proposing to deal with any potential conflicts there?
Yeah, we'll be sure to explain that to the contractor during our pre-construction meeting. We know that is an important drop-off site, and safety is paramount, especially for the children there that are getting dropped off. So we'll be sure that they're aware of that location and the timing of the drop-offs if we can get that information, and just make sure that they have full awareness. They're stopping all activity to ensure the safe pedestrian access.
Okay. Was any thought given to, I mean, I'm not sure exactly, do you know exactly what time in the morning that those school kids get picked up?
I don't have that information, but I'll say that I can get it. I think there's a morning pickup and an afternoon drop-off.
I'm just wondering, say that the pickup time is 7:30 in the morning. Was there, would there be any consideration to possibly shifting the hours of operation to avoid that?
Absolutely, especially activity around that staging area. We can certainly push that back or change it.
Okay. And it seems to me that for the most part of the way, as you explained, that this site is going to be used for material storage, for possibly some leftover soils and things like that, and employee parking, the employee restroom, portable restroom and all that. But will any actual construction type work be happening on this site?
No, there'll be no digging, no excavations on the site, simply for staging and storing.
No using any equipment to do grinding or material work or anything like that?
Other than picking up or dropping off material, that's the extent of the work that would occur.
Okay. That answers my questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Goldman, do you have any questions?
My primary question, I think, was answered. If this is the best available site and if there are any suitable alternatives. I think the answer was yes and no. Is that correct?
That's correct. We did look at several other sites, and we did feel that this location, given the proximity to construction activity and the fact that it's 2 vacant, undeveloped lots within the neighborhood, offered the best solution for staging for the contractor.
And what would be the next best option? Would it be the single lot site?
It would be the single lot site, yeah, within the same neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
So following up on that, does the single lot site have adjacent residences, fewer residences, less frontage? Is it more remote?
It's located on the intersection of Monterey and West Street. So there are still residences adjacent to, opposite of that site. It is also located near a signalized intersection, and West Street does get quite busy serving homes within the West Street neighborhood. Also, they serve over 200 homes from the Coast Rail neighborhood to the north. So we did feel that traffic would have been even more of an issue at that location than down at the Monterey Catalina site.
And how much smaller is that site?
It's only one parcel. I don't have the square footage off the top of my head, but I believe the one parcel is even smaller than one of the parcels within what we're proposing.
It would be less than half the size.
Correct.
The bus stop, is it directly adjacent to the site?
It's close to the...
I mean, is it right up against the fence?
I don't know where the bus exactly stops, but I want to say it's more adjacent to the park than the actual entrance to our site. So there should be some clearances there, but again, we'll make sure that there's awareness.
I mean,
and
what I'm
visibility.
thinking is if it's directly adjacent, could you create some additional space around it with the fencing so there's more, more space for, kids and families waiting and so forth?
Yeah, and that's something we'll continue to monitor. If we feel like it is a jam there, we'll make the adjustments to ensure that there's enough space for the children, for the parents, for pickups and all that.
Okay.
Excuse me, I'm familiar with that site. It's diagonally kitty corner across.
Okay, so it's not directly
No.
adjacent to the fence?
No, it's
Okay.
not.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Okay, that's.
Chair, I have
Yes,
one more
please.
question. Once the project is actually laid out with, where the utility boxes and all that stuff is going on, because I know we've gone through these before, are you coming back with that actual plan that we can opine on, or is?
We do already have the design review approval
Oh, you
for
do?
this
Okay.
project.
Okay.
Yeah, where we approve the pedestals, all above ground cabinets and so forth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Was I there?
Oh, they've already
I think
been
so.
through, yeah.
They all look the same.
Okay, because I always bring up, color of utility boxes and stuff, and I'm always pushing for those to be, disappear as much as possible. So.
Yeah, and to update you on that, we have been working and pressing Cox, especially for their pedestals, and we have been finding a dark green color
Okay.
available versus the light green that we've talked about.
Okay.
So I'm continuing to press them to grab all that they can for these projects, because I know that's something that the Planning Commission was asking for on the previous projects.
Thanks, Pierre.
Yep.
Okay, if there's no more questions, we'll open the public hearing. If anybody from the audience would like to speak on this item, feel free to do so at this time. We'll be taking your question. If there's any questions, we'll be taking those and answering them at the end of the public hearing rather than as you roll along. So feel free to start.
Okay.
And mention your name, and also make sure you sign in the clipboard that's on the table beside you.
So is this thing on? Yes.
Lenny Vincent. I live directly across the street from the proposed staging site, 31526 Monterey Street. It seems to me that all this boils down to is money versus quality of life. And I could see the contractor's point of view where he's looking for, as Pierre has mentioned in a letter to me, efficiency. So my question would be, if the contractor had a staging site, and I mentioned in my letter to all of you several other possibilities that are about a half a mile away, how much would that add on to the length of time this project would take? I would think that rain and employee absences due to sickness would be much more significant than having to travel a further half mile. And as Pierre mentioned in his letter, there's only intermittent use at this site. So in terms of money, how much would it cost the contractor to extend the project a day, a week, 2 weeks? I don't know. But I think your concern is the same as our concern, and that is quality of life. The area across the street from my house is pretty much a mini staging site all the time. The street is very, very wide, and Saddleback Construction, all kinds of companies come in there, unload and upload their trucks. It's very, very noisy. So we would be exposed to a lot of banging and chains and all sorts of things, plus the other aesthetics. Right now we have a beautiful green field, and what's it going to turn into? A storage site. And once the site is gone, what's it going to look like? So we're really concerned about that. I'm retired, I'm there all day long, and I will be exposed to this all day long, walking out of the house, looking at a green fence instead of what I look at right now. So I would hope, and I would think that your concern also would be to get this project over with. So I could see how you would sign with the contractor to get all this gone. And I'd like to see it all gone too. But if it came to having the project go another 2 weeks and have a different staging site, I would be all for that. And I didn't mention this in the letter, but I was thinking, what about the water, what's that? Ooh, the water district on the top of West Street, the hospital area, all those areas look to me like they would be perfect staging sites. And that small lot that he mentioned at West and Monterey, that was used for a much bigger project, the Coast Royale, and it worked. And one of the homes adjacent to that lot is seldom used. It's only the one across the street. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My voice is going, but before we start my time, after I read what I wrote down, I know the exact time the bus comes because I'm a teacher, no longer in this school district, but our daughter went to the school, and I know exactly what time the buses drop off and pick up. So I would be happy to answer that if you would like to know.
If you could provide that information to Pierre, that'd be great.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, good evening. My name is Sharon Lyons, and I live at 31522 Coast Highway, directly adjacent to the property that we're talking about. And I have several concerns. And the first is being health and the quality of life that it impacts. Because we live immediately adjacent to the lot, all the dirt and the debris generated will travel directly onto my property and into my home. And I frequently leave the windows open. So that's all going to be coming into the exterior and interior of my house, which will affect not only cause extra maintenance, affect our quality of life, it could cause health concerns with me also. And I'd like to know what modifications would be required to reduce these impacts and how residents affected will be compensated. And my second concern is noise. The construction may not occur all day, but workers typically arrive, from my personal experience, early in the morning, open the gate, pull in their cars, outside, having a cigarette, talking to each other, playing music. And this is sometimes 5:30, 6 in the morning because I get up early and walk, so I hear this. So I'm concerned about that. And there is a lot on the corner we were talking about, and I'm guessing that lot is somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000 square feet. I can't remember exactly, but the home immediately adjacent to that is a vacation home, so they're not there much. And that was used for a much bigger project. Coast Royale had many more houses, which was a much bigger project. I believe that the West Street project only has about 90 residents exactly. I'm not sure, but it's something like that. And I think it would be a much more reasonable site. Also with public safety, there's children that walk there in the morning. Some walk with their parents and they come about 7 o'clock. They wait for the bus and that's the first stop. Another bus comes a second bus comes for middle schoolers. A third bus comes to pick up the late owls, the kindergartners. And then that happens again in the afternoon. We have 3 drop-offs there. So there's 3 pickups, 3 drop-offs every day, every morning. Increased construction activity could create additional risk and must be carefully considered. And for all these reasons, I'm asking that the Planning Commission to reconsider the location and not issue a conditional use permit unless significant moderations are made, especially with the shrubs and vegetation, because that's a natural sound barrier for my house and it will help with the dirt and debris. And we also have a lot of birds that nest there. We have kestrels, owls, woodpeckers. So I'm asking for all of these reasons, besides the main thing is health and quality of life, that the other locations, especially the one on the corner of West and Monterey, be considered. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's Monterey, that's not the fire station.
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Roxanne DeGarmo, and I'm just going to reiterate really everything that Sharon and Lenny has said. I think all of you have received my email that I sent to you, and I appreciate you, everyone taking the time to listen to us. I live directly across the street from the site. And again, with the construction trucks loading and offloading of equipment, deliveries of materials, construction workers parking will create a very dangerous condition, especially with the kids, parents, and park users. And then if it goes through the summer, that area, because we live there and we are all full-time residents, where on the opposite end, that one lot, they are not a full-time resident. But the traffic for the beachgoers, they park all up Catalina Street, on Monterey Street, in front of my house, across the street, down the street. So we get all the college kids, high school kids, people coming from all over the place. It's just going to be a very heavy congested area. And again, I appreciate you listening to everything we said. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
And Christoph, I'm also concerned about this. I don't know if you're aware, but our group and many other residents of South Laguna have been petitioning and begging the city to acquire these lots for a park annex to the Village Green. And it's ironic that instead of a park, we're getting a staging area. And although there's an advantage there, but if the city starts to think that this is good for the city to own it, maybe that will move us further towards having a park there. But it's a high price to pay without some promise that we will have a park. The site on the corner is an archaeological site. They came to design review with a residential proposal a few months ago. And it's all been verified that it is an archaeology site. So I would suggest that that's not a good place for any disturbance to the ground there. But I wonder if they've considered the back part of the Aliso Beach parking lot, which the city uses for staging of equipment and materials all the time.
Which parking lot?
The Aliso Beach inland parking lot.
Oh, right.
It's out of the way. I don't think it's adjacent to anybody's house directly, and they are always using it that way anyway. And I also wanted to reiterate the issue of parking along that frontage because it is heavily used. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and allow staff to respond to some of the questions. And I think the biggest one in my mind, well, let me clarify first of all, are there any shrubs or trees being removed?
The palm tree, the mature palm tree would stay. There are several bushes, shrubs interior to the site that would be removed, but everything along the perimeters, as I mentioned in the presentation, would remain in place for the screening purposes. So only things on the interior, that way there's good access and ability to use the site.
And can you address the archaeological site?
There will be no ground disturbing activity.
Okay. And can you address the, again, let's revisit the alternative sites, because that really, I think, is the key question here. The Aliso Beach parking, I remember that has been used a number of times. What are your thoughts on, and it's big, there's no impacts. What are your thoughts on that?
My understanding is that the Southwest Water District does have an application in to use that site for staging. That would be to support their Lift Station 2 project. So there's already...
I think we've approved that.
Right. I believe that application...
That's overlapping from a time standpoint?
Correct. There'd be overlap there. And again, just to reiterate, having a staging lot close to where the construction activity occurs is optimal. The contractor will use their equipment to pick up pull boxes, hand holes, and bring them to the locations for installations. Easy to do when you're in the neighborhood, but not easy to do if you're driving on Coast Highway.
Well, and also it's already booked.
Correct.
So the west in Monterey, have we already talked about that site? Is that that's the single lot?
Correct.
That is less than half the size?
Approximately half the size, but again, located closer to that signalized intersection where there's just a lot more traffic.
Yeah, also mentioned was Water District up the hill, where they have parking all over the place. And then if the fire station is soon to be demolished, across the street from the fire station is another lot that's vacant.
Yeah, we didn't explore the Water District property, but it is a gated access, so that could introduce access issues to get in and out. So that wouldn't be a very feasible site to use for staging and needing access.
So you're talking about security conflicts with the Water District?
Correct.
And the other side across the street from the fire station, the future fire station. Yeah, it's an empty flat lot.
Yeah, we did not actively explore that one, but again, just the distance from that lot versus what we have to offer here tonight, I think it makes all the difference in the construction activity and trying to expedite our schedule as much as possible.
Do you have a sense if, just hypothetically, that lot next to the fire station were to be used, how long would that extend the construction period roughly?
It's hard to say, to put an actual, time frame to that. But it would be difficult to shuttle, material, pull boxes, vaults back and forth along Coast Highway from that site. Additionally, that site may be used for future fire station construction as well. So we want to make sure that stays open.
So you're trying to stay off of PCH?
Correct.
Yeah.
So Pierre, sorry. As far as the lot itself, I know, it's got all the grasses and stuff growing on it from all the rain and everything, but so that's all going to get cleared. Is there any thought given to some kind of compacted ground cover so that and maybe occasional watering to kind of keep the dust levels down? I mean, there's no construction going on the site. It's just basically vehicles pulling in and out, and that's it. So it's not like you're digging up the dirt and
correct.
all that. And
Correct. That's a good point. And there will be gravel at the entrance with shaker plates to ensure that dust doesn't get kicked up. If dust is an issue, especially in the drier or the summer months, then that's something that they'll water down. They'll manage that dust. They have their BMPs in place for that. So if it does become an issue, we'll make sure their contractor stays on top of that.
Okay.
So I just want, oh, go ahead.
Just to follow up on that, I mean, the city is required to follow the best management practices, and there's it's SWIPs or SWP, stormwater control and stuff. Isn't there the general construction requirements that require certain things be done to mitigate, what runoff and dust and stuff like that?
Correct. Yeah. So that will all be contained within the water pollution control plan. And there will be an exhibit put together by the contractor with those best management practices. They could include, dust abatement, straw swaddles, fiber rolls, those sort of things to mitigate any sort of runoff or those sort of conditions. So it's all contained within that plan.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Please. What is the likelihood? How certain is it that the project gets completed by the end of the year?
I would say likely that we'd have the project fully completed by the very end of the year, or at the worst, first quarter of next year. But again, the city contractor doing the civil construction, their work will be hopefully done by the late spring or the early summer. And at that time, the lot will be vacated and no longer used. Then the rest of the work would be on the utilities to do their hookups, their cutovers, and to ultimately remove the poles and the overhead wires. And at that point, the project will be considered fully complete.
Okay, so the staging area is disassembled as a staging area prior to completion of the project?
Correct. When our contractors finish with their portion of the work, then it will be demobilized, they'll move out, and it'll no longer need to be used.
And again, for that portion of it, you're shooting for June completion.
Correct.
Okay.
And what's the likelihood of that? Where is the project at its highest risk? Is it during the first 5 months, or is it subsequent to that?
It varies. It depends on what sort of unforeseen conditions we may encounter. We feel confident we can finish the project by the summer. Even the utility work can encounter some obstacles. It's hard to pinpoint one or the other at this point.
Okay.
Does the contractor have to remediate the site? In other words, hydroseed it or?
Not necessarily to
Plant it.
hydro seed, other than to just make sure it's returned back to its existing condition. The site does dry out on its own in the summer months, and then when the rains come, it kind of greens up.
Yeah.
So as long as it's returned to its existing condition, that's what we're looking for.
Do the plants that will be removed have to be replaced?
No, I don't believe it's part of the conditions of this project, and I don't know that the property owner is requiring that.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure we've checked there were two other sites. I don't know if we've talked about them. The one at 5th and PCH, have we talked about that one?
Yes.
Okay, and how about the end of 7th Avenue, the vacant field? That sounds like private property.
Correct. I believe that's property that belongs to the hospital, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I think we're ready for discussion. We'll open it up for commissioner comments and thoughts and discussion. Who wants to go first?
Okay. Listen, we all know that anytime there's any kind of a project, especially these undergrounding projects and other things that the city undertakes, that it's disruptive, it's construction, it's all those things that create, a less than ideal atmosphere for, people's lives for a period of time. But one of the things to keep in mind is that, undergrounding utilities is a real priority here in Laguna Beach because of the potential fire risk of having, transformers catch on fire and whatever. So as much as it's problematic for an interim period of time, the town ends up being safer and everybody's views are more beautiful because we don't have all these poles sticking up all over the place. You know, and the thing about undergrounding is it does create a better quality of life for everybody when it's eventually done. So I'm sympathetic to the neighbors, but you know, smaller sites for construction will potentially disallow, you know, workers to park on it and be able to have enough material and equipment to complete the project. So, as much as I understand and feel for the neighbors in terms of their quality of life issues, this is not something that's going on for years, and there is no construction happening on the site itself. So you know, I have to lean towards what is being recommended by staff on this one in terms of utilizing that lot for the staging area.
I can't really improve on that. I think that is very well said. The impact to a few of you is great, but the benefit is great for at the end of it, everyone and the whole neighborhood. And this is a public utility project, which is the goal of which is to improve our safety and, as Commissioner Dubin says, the quality of the environment, the aesthetic quality of the environment is greatly improved. I've lived through the Bluebird undergrounding, which took 5 years, and it was a more complicated project. And that's why I question Pierre about the duration, because in this case, that staging yard, he's said it publicly, it's in the record, it should be completed and returned to its natural state by the summer. And so that would be a 6 month period at the most. So I am very sympathetic about the individual impacts. I feel that in this case, I agree with the staff recommendation.
Commissioner Goldman, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think what Susan and George said is right. I understand the impact. I'm also South Laguna, albeit I'm not right at the site as the people who spoke are. But I'm supportive for city recommendation as well, really for 2 reasons. One, it's the best site, and 2, excuse me, it's a limited period of time. And there doesn't appear that there will be a situation where this has any potential to go on forever. And, you know, I agree with the greater good concept, unfortunately, at the expense of a few. But I'm supportive of this as well.
I you know, drove by and looked at the site and drove around the neighborhood. It's kind of unusual how 3 of our items tonight are kind of all around the same area. So met with the neighbors, spoke with them, understand their concerns. You know, and I just want to make clear that, you know, we're not trying to be dismissive of your concerns. I try really hard to and I think, you know, we all showed that we're you know, we're trying to look at other reasonable options if there are other reasonable options. But I agree with my fellow commissioners that, as explained, that this has been determined by the city to be the best available site due to its, you know, it's currently vacant. It's currently a pretty large lot. It's in the duration, you know, the proposed duration of this project hopefully will be what's anticipated here, and that the actual use of this site will be around 6 months. I know that will be disruptive. I believe the city will work diligently to try to ensure any conflicts between the use of this site and the school bus pickups and drop-offs are dealt with. So I feel again, that this is the best available site, and I'm willing to support the project as it's currently proposed.
Thank you. I'm not going to add much to that other than, these things, I mean, when you live in Laguna, there's always construction going on. You open your window, on a Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock, and there's noise coming from all directions and saws and trucks and backing up and so forth. It's kind of the sound of a living community. And I think that, this is it's a lot shorter duration than somebody building a house or remodeling a house right next door, which it's happened to me several times. And I do think that Public Works has, in a good faith effort, looked at these other locations, and this just does have public, benefits that outweigh some of the issues related to the other sites. So I think that this is just one that, we're going to have to put up with because the benefits to the greater good has been articulated by others, and it's just part of our evolving community. So with that, I will ask for a motion.
Move approval of temporary use permit 25-2452 and coastal development permit 25-2525, and finding said action exempt categorically pursuant to SEQA section 15304.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Sadler,
Yes.
Commissioner Whiten,
Yes.
Commissioner Dubin,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Goldman,
Yes.
Chair Kellenberg.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Appeal.
And I would also remind you, you do have a right of appeal, and also, where to find Pierre. And if things do go south and you feel that the conditions and the standards that have been represented here have not been lived up to by the contractor, you have the opportunity to speak to the Public Works Department. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Okay, we will move on to the next item, which is 5.2, Design Review 2025-2454. I welcome the staff to make a presentation. Are there any disclosures on this item?
I met with staff and the chair and the landscape architect on site.
As did I. Any others? Okay. You may proceed.
There you go. Good evening, Chair Kellenberg and Planning Commissioners. I'm Alpha Santos. I'm a project manager for the Public Works Department. Here with me is Evan Lee from SWA Group, who is our landscape architect for this project. We are here to present you Design Review 25-2454 for the Coast Highway Median Landscape Upgrades Project. On May 5th, 2021, Planning Commission approved Design Review 21883 and Coastal Development Permit 21884 for Caltrans to upgrade sidewalks on Coast Highway between Moss Street and 7th Avenue. One of the conditions for the project approval included city-funded betterments. One of those betterments included studying the installation of raised median islands for future landscaping to be done by the city in these three locations: between Montage Resort Drive and Wesley Drive, between Aliso Beach and Camel Point Drive, and the last one between West Street and Catalina Street. Caltrans has since then built the medians. They are 6 feet wide at its widest with a curb width of 8 inches, leaving us with a plantable area width of 4.5 feet. For your consideration tonight is the city's project to install drought-tolerant landscaping and a drip irrigation system in those medians. Irrigation sleeves were previously installed by Caltrans, and 3 of the 4 medians are currently tied into the South Coast Water District's recycled water mains. There are actually 4 existing medians that Caltrans built. The 3 that were in the approval, which are shown as median 1, 2, and 3 in the slide, plus an additional median numbered as median number 4 here, built between Wesley Drive and Aliso Circle. Coast Highway through this corridor is surrounded by a business plaza, the Montage Resort, Treasure Island, Lang Park, Aliso Creek, Aliso Beach, and residential areas that transition to the South Laguna Village Business District. And this slide highlights some of the notable landscape that you can find along this route. The first 2 pictures show the landscaping along Aliso Creek Plaza and the Montage. The third picture shows the rock banding that you can find in the South Laguna medians. And the fourth picture shows the landscaping of those medians just south of the project limits between 2nd Avenue and 4th Avenue. The plant types were selected by SWA Group in conjunction with Public Works and our landscaping team. The proposed plants display these traits. They're drought tolerant. They have compact growth habits with long-term performance. The selected plants have lower risk of growing into the roadway. And with only a 4.5-foot wide plantable area, selected plants had to have minimal maintenance because maintenance efforts would require lane closures on Coast Highway. Taller ground cover and accent shrubs with a maximum height of 5 feet are to be planted away from the noses of the medians to maintain lane separation and provide driver visibility along Coast Highway. Since filing the application for the Planning Commission review, we have acknowledged comments received to include more plant variety to better match the contextual surrounding landscapes. So also the medians feature the rock work of the existing South Laguna medians. Here I have the plant palette up, and Evan will describe the plant palette.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners, for the time today. So first of all, I want to state that the planting in these medians, although in a small area and for only 4 segments, these planting medians are seen tens of thousands of times a day. These are very highly visible planting that are going to be in these. Although small, really gives a big impact and has an opportunity to convey that character and quality that is seen in other areas of Laguna from an entry experience perspective. So our priority with the selection of these plants is really based on the ease of maintenance and how well that they can be served over time. So with that, we really wanted to create a strong backbone of plants, and a lot of these are these larger agave. This backbone will serve for the majority of planting. And recently, we took a second look to figure out how we can pull in more contextual planting that is seen elsewhere and including in the existing medians. And those will be used as accents and interdispersed based on the area in which it's located in, which I'll further explain. So the selection here really is, as Alpha said, drought tolerant. And I think maybe next slide, you can see here that our planting is narrow. As Alpha alluded to, we only have essentially right around 4 feet to work with, so we don't have too much space, unlike some of the current existing medians. So we really have to be careful on the spread of the plant selection. Most of our plant selection is at its maturity will be under 4 feet in diameter. And in order to create kind of a more dense planting, we've really staggered the planting in almost triangular spacing instead of a single row, and we don't have room for a double row. So this is kind of the prototypical approach, but each median is a little bit different in its conditions and its planting. So as mentioned, some of the contextual planting, at least near Montage, is the aloe arborescens, which is has a really bright orange bloom. You'll see them currently. The issue with this is it's often very widespreading and hard to maintain. And given in our kind of narrow profile of our current of these proposed medians, it'll make it quite challenging and it'll lead to die-off. So we suggest, still utilizing that same color palette. And we've recently added this coral aloe, which is actually also planted in the right-of-way of that portion, which is just a smaller growth and easier to maintain. As we go further south, on noted median number 4, we've introduced, purples and yellows seen in the Treasure Island planting near there. We kind of wanted to keep the Montage as a kind of this special palette. And as we kind of work further south from that, median number 2, we're starting to introduce status planting, which is also used in the current medians, along with the rock rose. And as we move again to median number 3, we'd be wanting to introduce more color, but more color of the Hesperalla, which is a little bit easier to maintain than some of the other current planting selections. So, as Alpha alluded to, we've heard some of the feedback, and our first approach was have bulletproof planting, but obviously there's some contextual influence and sub-character that we'd like to maintain. So we've gone back and added 3 of those plantings, and which all align with the LSHAR document. So, all right, thanks.
For the cobble banding, the city was made aware of a local source that has a stockpile of the San Onofre Brachiostone. The city has directly contacted with that source, and we've worked out that at the time of bid, the city will make contractors aware that there is a local source for these rocks, but the contractors themselves will be required to coordinate with the vendor regarding required boulder sizes and trucking. Here, staff recommends to adopt resolution number 25-2454, approving design review 25-2454 and finding said action exempt from state CEQA guidelines. That concludes our presentation, but we are here and welcome to take your questions.
Start with a question, if that's okay. You're asking the recommended adoption doesn't mention any revisions or adjustments to the plant palette. And am I to understand, Evan, that you're actively making changes to the plant palette based on input from the public? Is that correct?
That's correct.
And some of the plants that you showed just now are actually new additions, not in the plans that were originally developed, or is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we've added 4 additional plants in the current slide.
And that's in response to public comment?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
Yeah, I'm glad to see the addition of these plants. I think it's going to create more visual interest and be more contextual. You showed crassula, but I didn't see it on your prototypical plan. Tell us about that.
Yeah, for the enlargement plan, it was just showing one of the medians. There's 4 other ones. The other plans show that planting, and it's actually, I think it is noted here, it's towards the beginning. So at the end segments where planting material can be smaller, because the crassula is generally smaller anyways. It's noted as ground cover E.
Okay, yeah, I see. So it's the smaller.
Beginning and ends is where we plan to implant that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, not to get technical, but I would question whether the aloe arborescens is that hard to maintain. It's easy to break off and remove. And it certainly can grow in a 4.5-foot area. And the advantage of it is, first, it's spectacular when it does its thing. It's a bulletproof plant in terms of pollution and drought tolerant and so forth, but also gives a little variety of height and form, which otherwise things are pretty low, except for the Hesper aloe when it flowers. So if you could reconsider that in a limited fashion, particularly up by Montage, which is where it's, as you showed, prevalent. And maybe in, I don't know the numbers of the median, but the one that's further south from Aliso. I mean, it would work anywhere. It would work everywhere, actually. But that would be my comment. Now, I have a question, Alpha, regarding the construction observation. The contractor who's installing has a contract and a certain number of visits. Are you or someone in Public Works going to be present during construction observation to oversee, or is SWA going to be present to be sure that the plants are the right species and varieties? Because it frequently happens that the wrong plants can be delivered to a site and installed. Once installed, it's difficult to, in a public project, reverse course. So what is the plan for
Since
that?
this is a city project, the city would be overseeing the construction. We would have a construction inspector who probably has a landscaping background. And the plants get reviewed by a submittal process where the contractor needs to submit pictures of the plants. We'll have our maintenance team review it. We'll be there to review storage and drop off. And I've had maintenance crews actually be there to review and send back plants. And it helps that this is a city contract or a city project, and we can ensure that.
The planting submittals would also need to go through SWA for our approval too.
And the Breccia rock also?
Yes.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
What's the overall time frame for the landscaping project?
What the city had in mind was after fall and before the summer. What I've seen with landscaping projects, just depending on weather, it takes about 3 to 4 months after, and then another probably 6 months for plant establishment per a Caltrans permit. But 3 to 4 months after the fall shouldn't be too bad because the irrigation sleeves were already installed.
So in other words, provided you get approvals tonight, you'll be starting roughly when?
We'd like to say right after Labor Day, but I do
so not till the fall.
Correct, because this is on Coast Highway. We wouldn't want to affect summer traffic at that time.
Wouldn't it be better to, February, March, April? I mean, it's typically a little bit slower time in Laguna.
That could be taken into consideration for, it just takes time to actually develop the plans and do the bidding process, award process. And that would bring us into early summer if we tried bidding it out in about a month or two.
So you're looking at fall then as a start time?
We could start anytime after fall. So I've worked on the landscape or the medians on Coast Highway before, or on Laguna Canyon Road. We had the same timeline of trying to start after fall. It started in January and was able to be completed before April.
Yeah, okay. Because you don't want to run into obviously the holiday season either. So.
Yes.
As far as the lane closures, I mean, is that going to be like every time you're out there working, there's going to be a lane closure? Because, I mean, traffic is crazy on Coast Highway and it's not getting any better as time goes on. So what are we looking at there as far as, if you need to close a lane? Is it for the entire length of the project, or is it done in segments?
For the construction, it may be longer. You will definitely need one lane for maintenance, just because you cannot get full equipment and a person out within 4.5 feet for safety reasons. For construction, I know we'll need a minimum of one lane each direction.
So it would be seriously one lane on each side of the medium that you're working on?
During construction.
And that would be for all day, all week, all month?
For Caltrans, because Coast Highway is in Caltrans right away, Caltrans has actually worked with the city to make sure that there are no lane closures from before 9 a.m. and after 3 p.m. And the city would actually, those are the city's standards for Caltrans projects, and we would abide by that as well.
So is there any other projects that you know are going on that also are going to interfere with traffic flow that would conflict with what you're trying to do? Or are you looking into that to make sure there isn't like another project that's also needing to disrupt traffic flow?
I did hear about the South Coast Water District project that's in Aliso, the Aliso Beach area. The TUP that we discussed earlier, the potential sites are actually, the two sites that were in question were actually pretty close to the southern project limit for this project. But usually we were able to find a drop-off location, probably in Aliso Beach, to store those plants.
Okay. I just, I just think it's something to watch out for as you get into the project to make sure you're not doubling up on the potential disruption of traffic. So the northernmost planter bed is on a different irrigation system. Is that correct?
Yes. The Montage is all connected to a recycled water main on the south side of the street. That last one is not, the median in front of the Montage does not have a water main, a recycled water main on that side. Okay. So it's the Montage connects all their irrigation, even across their driveway, to the recycled water main.
Okay, so that'll be on some other system there, is that?
Yes.
Okay. And when you do, down the road have to do some maintenance in terms of, removing dead vegetation or whatever, is that going to require lane closures as well?
Unfortunately, for the safety of public works staff, yes. Or unfortunately for the public, yes, but for the safety of public works maintenance staff, it's required.
And is that once a year, twice a year? What do you think?
With the plant selection that we, of this project, maintenance crews were trying to minimize maintenance to about 2 to 3 times a year.
Okay.
I have a follow-up question on the construction schedule. What is it going to be? Are the meetings going to be done individually, or will everything be under construction at once?
This is something we can actually take into consideration before we go out to bid, whether it's the whole stretch or if the city wants to do this in sections.
This is a very, very simple plan. A crew of 5 people could install one of those medians in 2 days at the most. At the most. And if they were all being done simultaneously, in other words, you have 4 crews of people, or however many you need for 4 medians, it could be done quickly. So is it typical for the city to, kind of describe their preferred construction time period I mean, what tends to happen with these Caltrans projects is they start and they stop, and then they restart. Look, the sidewalk projects have taken 5 years, and they're still not finished in some sections of South Laguna. And the median planting is, you cannot get simpler. You just cannot get simpler. And I think we should request that it be done within a 2-week period. The whole thing, the whole project.
The time constraints, because this would be a city project, is something that we can add to the specifications, and we can add constraints and rewards as well.
Yeah, I mean,
ensure-
there are going to be things like where staging, where are you going to, the plant's going to be delivered, in smaller trucks, et cetera. There are logistical issues, but it's just as simple as, I mean, it couldn't be simpler. Nothing complicated here.
The only thing that may take time is the rock work.
Well, the rock work, yes, but not the planting.
Yeah.
I mean, once the rock work is done, then it just can go in literally overnight. But I don't know what the parameters are in requiring that. But I think one of our considerations as Planning Commission is the disruption issue that Commissioner Dubin was explaining. And it really is, it's a nightmare to, you're going to the south and for example, you have to go to the hospital or something, you can miss your appointment because of construction, and it's pretty much you have to account for it these days. So anything we can do to control it would be great.
Questions?
Yes. This project, I mean, the big project of the Caltrans improvements and the sidewalks, we heard back in 2021, and did I understand that the medians as currently constructed, were those constructed by Caltrans?
Yes, they were.
And is Caltrans have any approval authority over this landscaping that's going into these median strips?
I'll have to get back to you on that. But these plants have been, I did look, they are in the highway design manual. And none of them are trees. So we do have the city does have a little more leeway for the planting selection. The city has an approved agreement with Caltrans to provide the landscaping for the medians.
Okay, the reason why I asked that and why I'm trying to square this in my mind was prior to this project coming to us in 2021, Commissioner Goldman and I were on a subcommittee, I believe, or a task force about this whole section and the plans. And one of the issues that we brought up and were brought up by members of the public we were at that point requesting median strips. And at that time, Caltrans was saying, absolutely not. No way. You cannot have, it's not allowed. You cannot have median strips when the prevailing speed is what it is along these sections of Coast Highway. So I don't understand how we went from that, an absolute no, to now we have these median strips there. It's just, it confuses me a little bit, but I'm glad that it did work out. One of the issues, that we were talking about, other than, general beautification and stuff, was an attempt at traffic calming along some of these sections. People, especially right by the dip of Aliso Beach there, tend to speed, well above the posted speed limit. So there was, we were trying to come up with creative ideas to hopefully slow traffic down, and that was one of them. I was even suggesting, can't you put some extra winding curves into the road itself? And they were, kind of laughing at me, but anything that could be that we could do. So anyway, I that's kind of just a general comment and a question, but I'm glad that we are at this point. One other question I had is about these cobblestones and this San Onofre breccia stones or cobblestones or whatever you want to call it. I understand that that's what was done on the median strips, existing median strips further south in South Laguna. But I guess my question is kind of semi-question and semi-comments for you to comment on is, one, what's the point of them? At the speed that people are going to be going by these median strips, is it really going to be appreciated and noticed? Secondly, by adding these strips of stone around these planting areas, aren't we pinching down what is already a pretty restricted planting area further? And by adding this cobblestone strips, does that further complicate, does that help or hinder future maintenance of these median strips?
Yeah, I can answer that. A couple points. So the cobble band, it is seen in the other ones. The intent for them in this application would be for maintenance, a maintenance pathway that allows maintenance crews to, since a lot of these agaves are going to be big and kind of difficult to work around, the maintenance strip or the cobble could act as a walkway path. Second, it prevents plant growth from being planted too close to the edge. It allows plant growth to kind of gather over that cobble without going over the curb and going into drive aisle or into the asphalt. And third, it prevents any sort of topping layer. Normally, we would need to provide mulch or some sort of other layer. In our case, we're proposing decomposed granite. It allows that to have a retainer and allows that to not kind of blow off into the street. So those kind of 3 points.
Okay, thank you. Yep, that answers my questions. Thanks.
Commissioner Goldman, do you have any questions?
Yeah, my main questions were around timing and impact, which I think George, between George and Susan, they covered all of that. My main concern is that this goes longer and the impact with lane closures, because I agree, in South Laguna, those the curbs have just seemed like the sidewalks seem like they've gone on forever.
Okay, thank you. We'll now open the public hearing. For those that would like to speak on this, please step to the podium. You have 3 minutes.
Would you please hand this out? I hope you might give me a little extra time since I'm the only one here, or they may be also speaking, but if you could look at this wonderful illustration that I prepared. I'd like to preface this, though, by saying this issue of maintenance is, I think, misinterpreted. My office is right next to these medians, and I observe what they're doing. The maintenance people come very early in the morning when the traffic is minimal. They come before we ever get there most of the time. And they do come, I think, every week. I don't think you can say that you can maintain these 3 times a year. There are things that happen. There are trash that gets in among the plants. There's weeds that come up. There's dead material that has to be removed. I mean, if you're not going to take care of these, it's not right. I think they made the wrong interpretation about what's easy to maintain. So look at this picture on the front where you see the Agave attenuata, and then look at the one on the bottom illustration. That is huge, and they can get very big. And the problem with the agaves is that you can't really prune them in an aesthetic way. You can't cut those leaves off. And if you take the big leaves off the bottom, you start to get a little trunk, and it looks like a ridiculous palm tree. So I think that in order to deal with this issue, we need plants that are easy to maintain, that don't look like they've been pruned after they've been pruned. So as Susan was saying, the the aloe arborescens is a plant like that. You can make it become long and narrow very easily. The crassula, the jade plant, can be easily, you just break off the offending branches that are too far in, and the plant still looks just fine. I think we need to have height. Since we've had narrow medians, we need to have some things that have some height, some stability, and that will continue the look of what we've got. I think a row of different kinds of agaves is not the right approach. So I would say the rows should be crassula, aloe arborescens, maybe some aloe ciliaris, which I've shown here in this illustration, and and call it a day with some of these smaller succulents that they're doing and the status. And that would continue the look of what we've got, even though we're limited to a narrow situation. When I talk to people about these medians and the planting that's going to happen, they just say, are they going to look like the ones we have? I hope they do. So they don't know the details of these plants and what plants do what. So I have to be here to represent that interest. I mean, people love the medians we've got, and the new ones should look as much like that as possible. I'm hoping that the city will acquire those rocks so that we're sure that we have them. I don't understand why Hesperaloe has to be introduced. The aloe arborescens will do the exact same thing, much better. And I was hoping we'd get these done before summer. I agree with Susan, the planting doesn't take very long, but I understand that, you know, the process of bidding and the creation of the drawings and all those things takes more time. But to think about having those weeds for another 9 months is really depressing. So anything we could do to do it faster. Also, when they work on those medians, they don't close a lane. They do it, as I said, very early in the morning with very little coning off. But I understand that the construction will require more closing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other speakers?
Yes, I just want to say that based on Ann's track record in South Laguna, I want to second everything she just said.
Just on the principle of it.
On the principle,
Yeah,
yes.
okay. Okay, thank you. Anybody else would like to speak? If not, I'll close the public hearing and allow Evan and staff to respond to some of the suggestions that were made.
Go first? Yeah. So regarding the question about the aloe arborescens, I think it is a good performer in terms of its showiness. It's very Laguna. It works really well on the right-of-ways where it can be easily maintained, has a little bit better growth habit. However, it has struggled on the medians. If you're gonna go out there currently, there are assortments of it, and this could just be due to maintenance issue, need to be removed and replaced. But we have seen it struggle out there. If there was a tighter maintenance regimen, maybe we could maintain that look a little more easier. But
have you gotten an opinion from the maintenance staff on that plant?
Yes, I did. While they require low maintenance in open spaces, in confined spaces, they require constant maintenance to allow airflow and sunlight for adjacent plants, is the comment I received from maintenance.
Okay, well, not complete agreement with that, but noted. Okay.
I think at least in our application, the coral aloe, which is basically planted right adjacent to it near the montage, it's a very similar bloom, has a lot lower footprint. So, you know, with the recent changes that we've made, we feel more strongly about that in its use because it can maintain the color, can maintain a similar look. It gives it more height with those blooms, but we don't have the concerns of it overgrowing or for dying off.
Comments about the size of the agave?
Yeah. So in terms of the agave, we do have the width in which we're planting them. And again, from our perspective, we're looking at well performers. If you go further south in Laguna or even past into Dana Point, the use of these agave, specifically agave tenuata, they're well performers. They're always there's little die-off compared to some of these other plant species that we've seen.
What about their
in Canada.
size? And
So their size, they do grow larger. They're not as spreading as the arborescens, but the way that we were trying to plant them is we're planting them staggered. We had that kind of in our enlargement exhibit where they're alternating over triangular spacing, where not double stacked. We feel that using this arrangement allows us to have more flexibility in terms of how much they can spread without growing out over the stone or into the curb. And to the public comment about growing them in height and removing limbs, we agree that that's not a good look and we don't want to have that happen. And that's kind of why we stagger them the way that we have.
so you believe that there's sufficient space within the medium for them to grow to maturity without having to be pruned back?
Yeah, and we're not planning to plant these agave at the beginning or the ends of these medians where it tapers off. We're planning to plant them further in where the width is the maximum it is.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments you want to make on the? Okay. All right. Well, public hearing is closed. We'll open it up to Planning Commission discussion. Who would like to go first?
I'll go
I'll
first.
start, I guess.
Oh, no, go.
Okay.
Go.
Oh, I didn't see you go, Susan, sorry.
Go.
Look, I think these medians are in place to be finished. They're going to be built. It seems like the palette is okay. Some of you may have more specific comments on the plants and the palette, but the city took input from the public and the palette to me seems fine. To me, it's all about the timing and the impact, and how we try and ensure that this, it gets started and finished in a timely manner, not started and delayed and started and delayed. And I don't know how we address that, but I'm supportive of the project. I just think we need to find a way to ensure that this doesn't drag on and it gets done as quickly as possible, because the closures in that part of Laguna, it really debilitates back and forth from South Laguna to downtown, and people who one way of exit, people who are leaving Laguna going south. So I mean that's my biggest comment on this is how we ensure or how we do the best we can to keep this project moving very quickly, because it's not a complicated project as has been pointed out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Susan?
Yeah, to follow up on that. I think you've done a good job of picking up the public comments by expanding the plant list. I think it's going to look, I mean, the palette is kind of a mishmash of Mediterranean, and it's got all the great attributes of Mediterranean, which is eclectic planting, a lot of variety in the texture and color and height and so forth. So they can be really beautiful. I still would like to put a stake in the breccia rock for the aloe arborescens. I don't agree with the comments from the maintenance department. It's easy to maintain. It's absolutely bulletproof. And so that'd be the only recommendation. And a comment on the maintenance current, which I think should be passed on to the maintenance department, is the maintenance in the South Laguna medians is terrible. I looked at them really closely in the last week, and they need to supplement the existing planting, infill where things have died. It just looks kind of a little forlorn, I guess. Now the other thing on the construction scheduling, which Commissioner Goldman and I both have addressed, the contract with the contractor can include penalties for construction delays outside of those caused by Mother Nature. So if there are delays that are not caused by rain, in our case, there's a grace period typically, but then beyond that, there are penalties that the contractor has to pay, and you can write that into the contract with the contractor. That may be a way to get control of this, because the public should not have to put up with the kind of traffic that is created, particularly in simple projects. So I think with the proposed revisions that address the concern of the public and frankly make these medians a little more robust and interesting, I support the project.
Other comments?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the plant palette. That's not my world. So I defer to Susan on those comments, and also Ann Christoph's comments. She's very familiar with the mediums down that exist in South Laguna and what has worked well and what has not worked well. So, and I think it sounds like you guys have taken those things into consideration in terms of the comments made and letters and whatever else from the South Laguna Civic Organization that made some recommendations, and I think those are worth listening to. I'm going to agree with Commissioner Goldman in regards to delay traffic issues, time frame. So whatever the best practices are in terms of construction, I don't know if that means starting with one at a time and getting it done and or scheduling that way, or if you're going to schedule the whole project at one big fell swoop. I'm not sure which direction would be better in terms of traffic delays and inconvenience for people, because I know when the sidewalk project, which is still going on, there was some really insane traffic backups going in both directions during certain periods of time when they were working on that, and it's frustrating for people who live in South Laguna trying to get to town, and also of course a lot of it is pass through traffic, as we know. They're not people avoiding the toll road and whatever, but so I think really the scheduling is going to be critical in terms of getting this done as quickly and as efficiently as possible, and I'm sure you'll take that all into consideration. I was a little surprised to hear that you weren't going to start till after summer. It didn't seem like, well, I understand there's process in terms of putting together the documentation and the bids and all that stuff, but it seems like if you're not starting till after Labor Day, there's going to be a possibility of running into holiday times, which is going to just be a nightmare for people to deal with. So I'm not sure how to expedite it at this point. We certainly don't want to wait till January of 2027 to start. So anything that can be done to maybe expedite this as quickly as possible and potentially get it done before this summer of 26 would be great. So other than that, I'm supportive of the project. I'd like to see it done as well, because having those mediums empty and just they're an eyesore, and they're not really contributing to the pleasure of driving Coast Highway.
I'll go. Yeah, I'm supportive of the project. Back to the median strips themselves, I'm glad that we got them. I'm still a little mystified that how we got here after, Caltrans being so adamant originally about them not being approvable. And I remember at that time, we were asking questions about, what's the concern? Is it about the type of plants that are going to be there? Like, a wayward car slamming in? And they were concerned about having a curb. It's like, there's a curb on the other side of the road. I mean, what are you talking about? So, but anyway, we've got them here. As I drove south along Coast Highway, it seemed to me that the originally proposed plant palette seemed to tie in pretty nicely with what was happening at the Aliso Creek Shopping Center along their property edge and at the Montage. Maybe not so much as the existing existing median strips on towards South Laguna, but I appreciate the changes that you made to the plant palette. supportive of that. Other than that, you did a good job of explaining my question about the stone, and you convinced me that that's, that it is a good idea for a number of reasons. And along with the other commissioners, I support trying to speed up the process as much as possible, but understand that probably by the time, we get this approval tonight, you get the actual plans finalized, send it out for a bid, get those bids back, have the city council have to, rule on which company to pick. It's going to be summer, and there we are. So, if you can speed up the process, great, and I'm fully supportive of that. But generally, I'm supportive of the project.
The only thing I have to add is it occurs to me that, sometimes when the lanes get shut down and there's construction, you drive for like a quarter of a mile and there's nothing going on. And then you get up to the end and there's like one guy in a pickup truck. And so they've like closed everything down and disrupted people's lives dramatically. It seems like there's sometimes a lack of consideration when the coning and the shutdowns are done. So I think what we're asking you to do formally and for the record is to go out of your way to try and manage the construction impacts on the traffic on PCH. It occurs to me that both sides don't need to be closed down except when potentially they're putting in the rock liner. But as soon as that goes in, all the work should be able to be done from one side, and I know there's going to have a tendency to close down both lanes, but just say no. They can safely work, from one side potentially. Anyway, that's one observation. And I also hope you do take the suggestions from Ann Kristoff seriously, because she lives it every day. She looks down at it. She knows what works and what doesn't, as you do as well. But, finding a blend between those comments and what you have in your plans, I think would be very responsive to the neighborhood and the community, which we always do as much as we can. So could I get a motion, please?
I'll do it. I move that we adopt resolution number 25-2545, approving DR 2025-2454 and finding said action exempt from CEQA.
Second.
And so, Chair, if I may, I just want to be clear that two issues I wanted to raise. First, the resolution as drafted references, I believe, an early December plan set. We're going to want to go ahead and change that. And I believe my colleague to the left can put that up there to reflect that the plans, and this is to incorporate the changes to the plant palette submitted by the applicant and presented to the Planning Commission on January 21st, 2026. And as I said before, that language should be up there relatively quick. And then I did want to make sure that staff, captures the consensus from what I heard about the schedule of landscaping and the installation. Because it is a public works project, I will say our standard agreement does have the liquidated damages in there. Not to prejudice us too much, it's not always quite as simple as, hey, you missed it by a day, because everyone has a story. They may point to us, but just for your guys' edification, there is that. And then I believe we do have some language out there that says that the Public Works Department, as the applicant, will use best in all efforts to have the most expedient and reasonable installation schedule. And then if you want, we can potentially add some verbiage about minimizing lane closures and then the length of those lane closures as well, if that's the will of the Planning Commission. Thank you, Chair.
Do you agree with those changes?
I do, and I would say that that we adopt the amended resolution as presented
What
at the
about
meeting tonight.
Commissioner?
Hang on, Chair.
Wait,
Hang on, Chair.
Hang on.
Got to make
Wait,
it Chair. And once again, you're running this meeting. With all due respect to Ms. Kristoff, if you guys would like to hear from her, you need to open that up and take it. But this is not a back and forth where members of the public can just get up during your guys' motion and start providing input, provided the chair does not provide.
In fact, I was just getting ready to briefly open up the public hearing again for one final comment.
Thank you. I just wanted to be sure that Commissioner Whiten's stake in the ground about the aloe arborescens got into the motion.
I believe it did, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Close the public hearing. Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have a vote?
Commissioner Sadler,
Yes.
Commissioner Whiten,
Yes.
Commissioner Dubin,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Goldman,
Yes.
Chair Kellenberg,
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alpha. Evan.
Okay, we will go, I think we have one more item, unless there's a request for a break. Okay, we're good. We're going to move to item 5.3, which is Design Review 2025-1035, Coastal Development Permit 2025-1037, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I will hand it over to staff to make their presentation.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. Item 5.3 is Design Review, Coastal Development Permit and Conditional Use Permit for 2020 South Coast Highway. The project is located in the C1 local business zone and is currently operated as a hotel. They're proposing to expand into existing square footage that exists and will be adding 3 rooms to go from 22 units to 25 units. Design review is required for exterior modifications to the hotel, and a coastal development permit is required for the intensification of use. Additionally, the Planning Commission is being asked to make a recommendation to the City Council on Conditional Use Permit 25-1036 and Coastal Development Permit 25-2021 regarding a request to reduce the number of required parking spaces by 15%. In 2021, the city did approve building permits for extensive interior and exterior remodel of the hotel, which included window and door replacements, interior space renovations, parking lot reconfigurations, and conversion of guest rooms. During the plan check, the building plans were revised to introduce a new color scheme and board and batten siding in place of the previously approved off-white stucco. These exterior design changes were not identified by staff at the time, even though such modifications require design review approval, and these modifications are included in the project scope tonight for the Commission's consideration. The hotel, as you can see, has a mix of architectural styles, materials, and details that combine into a cohesive design. It incorporates Spanish colonial, mid-century, Tudor revival, and cottage design elements. The proposed color and material board introduces a dark black paint finish, which is paired with an olive green metal clad doors and windows and a red clay tile roof with red brick elements. The design review is generally consistent with the neighborhood and is appropriately articulated, respects view equity, privacy, and is appropriate in mass and scale. Staff does, however, find that the proposed conversion of the exterior alterations are perhaps inconsistent with the design integrity criteria of findings number 3 and neighborhood compatibility, with particular attention to the proposed color of the building facade. The project does comply with zoning standards, including height and setback requirements. The project is consistent with all required coastal development permit findings and the city's local coastal program. In addition, the project complies with all applicable policies of the general plan and is not located within a specific plan. The project does advance several identified land use element policies in the city's general plan. Finally, a conditional use permit to reduce the number of required off-street parking spaces is based on the implementation of the applicant submitted transportation demand management plan. Those measures include providing guest bicycles, incentivizing the use of transit, providing or incorporating parking fees to disincentivize parking on site, and offering local transit options. The parking reduction being requested is 4 spaces, and the submitted transportation demand study has been peer reviewed to substantiate the analysis to support that reduction. Staff's recommendation is that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 25-1035, approving Design Review 25-1035 and Coastal Development Permit 25-1037, and recommending that the City Council approve a Conditional Use Permit 25-1036 and Coastal Development Permit 25-2021 for the reduction of the parking spaces and finding said action exempt from CEQA. Since publication of the staff report, a letter was received in opposition for the request of the reduction in the on-site parking spaces for the project. I'm available to answer any questions, as is the project's applicant.
Questions for staff?
Yeah, I have a couple. The room conversion creates 3 new rooms, and is there still a manager's room? Is that,
One of the rooms being converted is the existing manager's room. I don't know if, once it's converted to 2 separate units, they will still be maintaining a manager's unit on site.
so it's actually 4 new rooms, right?
No, one of the 2, there's a 2 unit or a 2
Oh, that's
bedroom.
turning into a suite.
Right.
Okay, all right. The land use element 6.2.2 talks about affordable rooms, but I think I understand that the applicant's going to pay an in lieu of fee to the city instead of providing what is considered affordable accommodations. Is that correct?
Yes.
And also land use element 6.14 talks about art in public places, but is it also true that the applicant is going to pay an in lieu of fee? And is that correct?
Yes, that's what they've decided.
And I guess I have a question for the applicant, but that'll come later. I was just curious why they didn't want to do any public art, but I'll ask that later. And under the innovative parking solutions, there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle, and who's going to monitor that? Because it's always great to approve these things, but down the road, it's things can kind of slip and slide a little bit, and so I'm wondering, is the city going to have any oversight in terms of the hotel owner actually following through with the parking solutions?
Yes, the code section that allows for the parking reduction actually has some requirements that the innovative solutions that have been implemented pursuant to the section demonstrate the effectiveness of those innovative parking solutions. And so the necessary supporting documentation is requested. And I believe there's also a requirement that they show the effectiveness at a 1 year and 5 years from the date of the approval, and that would be part of the conditions of approval from the city council.
Thank you.
I have a question about the parking plan. Let me get back to the page. Sheet A002, which shows the parking plan. The parking stall requirement is 23, is that correct?
Let me pull up the plans.
More than that.
No, the total is 27, but they're asking for 4 through the transportation management plan. So there would be 23 on site,
Yeah.
correct? Okay, when I'm looking at the sheet, and I see 21 stalls. Where are the other 2?
The plan is still loading, but I'll pull it up onto the screen as soon as it does.
There are 2 motorcycle spaces, but those don't equal 2 stalls.
I believe they've also provided the bicycle spaces, which is equivalent to 1 stall, and then,
2 motorcycles.
yeah, the other one, yes. So
Okay, and where are the bicycle racks or the bicycle storage area?
they are at the eastern upper left, yeah.
Upper left? Can you show us on the plan?
Yes, let me see as soon as it pulls up. Yes. So right next to that roof.
Oh.
Yeah.
Up there. Okay, that's on the street, right? That's on Diamond Street, correct?
I believe it's within their property line because that dash line indicates their property line.
Yeah, those are just, can you clarify what those are? Are those bicycle racks?
Yes, they're intended to be bicycle parking spaces, and our code says 8 spaces is equivalent to 1 parking
Okay.
space.
And then where are the actual bicycles stored that the hotel is providing?
That,
Or because I thought your presentation said that the hotel was providing bicycles for the hotel guests as part of this transportation management plan.
perhaps the applicant can respond to if they're providing bicycle
Okay,
or just
so-
bicycle spaces.
We can ask the applicant about that. All right, that's one question. The next, the next question is, if parking stall 21 is a parking stall, how is it also a rideshare drop-off and pickup?
The rideshare and drop-off would be a momentary use. It typically wouldn't last more than a few minutes, so it does function as a parking space for the rideshare, but it is also meant to indicate where those rideshares should park during that drop-off so as to not impede traffic for the overall parking layout.
Yeah, okay, because parking spaces are 23 are required, 21 shown, and this space is one of those 21. And then we have 22, which are the bicycle, and 23, the motorcycle, right?
Yes.
So I will ask the applicant about that also. Just to talk about the building color for a minute, the building color that we have now was approved by the city, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so it's legit.
It didn't come through design review, though.
No, but it was approved through the building department, correct?
Through an oversight, yes.
Well, but it was approved.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to know. Those are all my questions for now.
Commissioner Goldman, questions?
No, not at this point.
I guess I have a couple questions. If you really get down to it, there's 20 to 21 spaces here for 20, would normally be 27. So it's really about a 22% reduction. If you kind of, yes, technically the bike rack, the motorcycle and the bike racks count, and I understand that. But in terms of practical usage, in terms of parking demand, it's significantly under less than code. And one of the explanations of that is the use of Uber and Lyft type of access. And I think the applicants believe that, and historically have proven that that in effect does really reduce the amount of parking that's kind of required. And I did some research on my own and found that to be the case depending on the type of hotel. And I'm looking forward to hearing Steve Goldman's opinion on this before we get done here. But so the question is the use of Uber and Lyft shared mobility going to be sufficient to offset the reduction in parking, in my mind anyway? Are there other hotels are there precedents in Laguna where other hotels and motels have as much of a parking reduction as we have on this project based on the assumption of alternative access as is being represented on this project?
Thank you for your question. So staff was able to look at the information related to other projects that were approved with this innovative parking solution. In this case, we have one other project that has a similar implementation of the program, looking specifically at the modifications related to the Pacific Edge Hotel that were considered by the Planning Commission this past November. So in there, it's not quite the same one-to-one reduction, but we are looking in that case at a 20% reduction. They did have, as there were quite a few, a component of their project that related to the commercial development, that did have other similar types of parking incentives related to it, but substantively, it was a higher percentage. And it's the only other program or only other project that we have currently implementing the innovative parking solutions section of our code. However, we do have other similar hotel projects that do have fewer than one space per. Exactly. So not through the innovative parking solutions, but when you're looking at existing legal legal non-conforming, we have historic parking incentives related to historic preservation efforts, in addition to other types of parking variances. So there is a history throughout the city of having fewer parking spaces than the number of rooms provided, though they are through different tools.
Okay, thank you. That's a great answer. And did I hear briefly mention that there is a system where after 1 year and after 5 years, there's some type of verification?
Yes, that is correct. It's built into the monitoring program related to the innovative parking solutions.
Okay, thank you. We can open the public hearing.
Before you do,
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Just a quick question. Concerning the color was approved by the building department or
It was approved by planning staff.
planning staff, but, so I'm just curious, why is it even part of this application?
Because it does require design review approval, and it was a staff oversight to approve it without having gone through the design review process. So it's still an after-the-fact approval.
Correct. And so I think I don't want to put words in your mouth, is that the applicant did receive city approval, albeit approval that should have came before you all, such that any idea that the applicant did this just on their own and said, hey, city, kick rocks, we're going to do what we want. That's not the case here. Not that that should go into your guys' decision. You guys should judge this on its merits, but we just wanted to be sure that the applicant, that the narrative was not misrepresented such that it seemed like the applicant was a bad actor.
I understand that. So that was a city faux pas versus applicant faux pas.
That's a very polite way to put it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we can open the public hearing and the applicant can represent their proposal if they'd like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're on. Actually, Shweta covered pretty much everything we needed to. I actually want to get into your guys' questions, so we're just going to leave it at that. I do want to introduce myself. I'm Ben Stevens, the architect. I'm here with one of the owners, Blake Marriott, behind me, as well as Arthur Black here from LSA regarding the parking and the parking study. And we're here for questions. Thanks.
I think you heard a question about bike storage. I mean, are you actually providing bicycle rental on site or non-rental?
Yes, bikes would be provided by the hotel for their guests. And then we have two different storage locations. There is along the side yard, it's in the back, but it's like a long side yard. There's a locked gate that those could be behind there. And then we also have an interior location if we needed to for weather inside of that. There's a small roof structure right there. And it has an access door. We can pull it into there. So that would be where we would have the bike storage.
So you have 8 bikes available?
Correct.
Okay. Could you answer the question about how the rideshare drop off and pickup? I mean, to me, it looks like a direct conflict. You have a parking stall, you're sitting, I'm in the room, I'm parked for the day because I'm taking the trolley and don't want to drive my car. And then along comes Steve, wants his rideshare. I'm in the rideshare space. How do you see that working?
Thank you. So what we've done is set up different times of day because the hotel parking demand peaks at night. So during the daytime, when you have people maybe taking rideshare to a restaurant in Laguna Beach and coming back, that rideshare space would be open and available so that the rideshare drivers know where they can drop off and pick up outside of the public right-of-way. And then it would, however, be available for residents, for guests at the hotel to park during that period of peak demand overnight.
What do they do with what do I do with my car during the day? If that's that's my designated parking space for my room, what do I do?
It would not be an assigned parking space to a room, but so it would have to be vacated by a certain time in the morning. And then it would be available overnight.
Is that part of the transportation management plan then?
Yeah, and also in there's a requirements that there has to be a sign posted, and it provides the hours of the day when it's dedicated for rideshare. So that sign would be posted right there at the front of the space or at the back of the space.
Right, does all this add up to the 27 spaces that are needed?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Thank you.
If you're coming from the Inland Empire, you have to ride your bike.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Just regarding the traffic or the parking plan and providing these bicycles to guests. And this is more out of curiosity, but is there a liability issue with doing that? I mean, to providing bicycles to your guests when you're located on Coast Highway? I mean, Coast Highway is, not the safest place to be riding a bicycle, or Glen Eyrie for that matter isn't all that safe either. So a couple of the major roads that surround this project are not, particularly bike friendly. Does that become a liability issue if a hotel is to provide a guest a bicycle and they get injured?
You want to answer that? There's a waiver system, and it's also depending on the management company that's running the hotel. They'll have there's different methods for them to limit their liability. But yes, that is something that will be their responsibility, meaning the management company that's operating.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I was looking at page 12, finding number 9 in the staff report. And, board and batten, typically, I guess I've never seen it painted black. And it seems incompatible with that type of siding. The red roof tile, obviously, and the green window trim fits the architectural style. However, I'm finding the black siding inconsistent with neighborhood character. And I was wondering why black versus, some other color that's more compatible with character and style of the neighborhood.
Yeah, the idea behind the black, it's actually like a black green. It's got green, hence the green windows, obviously plays off of it, is to soften up the looks. Because when it was an off-white before, it was kind of there's a lot of blank, especially up in the front. So it was in order to bring it down a little bit, subdue it. So if you look at, for example, I think it's figure 5 on page 7, it kind of pops the roof when you look at it from the street, but the rest of the hotel is a very soft look. It kind of falls back into almost like the shadow versus trying to be up front. And it's set up in a U shape, which is actually more like a mid-century layout, and everything's around the central court. So, we didn't want to be highlighting our parking lot in the middle, even though we're proud of how we fixed it up with the last remodel. But nonetheless, the idea is to soften that so that it's not popping out. We're not trying to be loud right on the corner.
Well, I mean, I understand it recedes quite a bit, but almost like it's a black hole now, and it's, I'm just trying to understand the use of, a black color on a type of siding that it just doesn't seem compatible with, I guess that's an opinion, but and my other question is about the public art. Is what is the reason you didn't want to do? I guess the project qualified for art in public places, but instead you've chosen to do it in lieu of fee. Is there a particular reason you didn't want to even?
Not like a specific one, but no. Yeah, the owners talked about it, and based on the kind of space that we had available and what limited space. At the time, they said, what, we're not interested. I wasn't given too much more than that, but I think it was just an internal decision. And
getting to the parking, there was some mention, I believe, in the staff report about a possible, if there is a overuse of the parking and you have, a couple more guests that came with a car, how are you going to accommodate that? Is there a valet system, or are you just going to tell them find a spot on the street, or how's that going to work?
Thank you. I think at the beginning, what I'd like to bring to everybody's attention is that when staff made their report, they mentioned that in 2021 there was a project that involved renovation of the parking lot. This site has been operating for quite some time under the previous ownership, there were 12 parking spaces at this hotel, 2 of which loaded off of Diamond, where the bicycle parking spaces are now being proposed. And the hotel operated like that until this ownership group came, revised, renovated the parking lot, added 9 additional vehicle parking spaces. They also corrected some maintenance issues on the Diamond side of their property line, improving the sidewalk, and doing some landscaping improvements that brought 4 of the city's on-street parking spaces, made them usable again, where they had been previously unusable. So this ownership group has done a lot to increase the parking supply. When I was preparing this report, we did look at the numbers. I asked for a year's worth of data since they had been collecting the parking fee. Instead of doing spot surveys, which I also did going out and visiting the site, but I got a year's worth of data to say how many of the guests that came to the hotel also parked a car. And I could do that over a 12-month period and look at what was that percentage. And based on the low percentage of that it's more than 15% fewer, it's more than a 15% reduction if you just look at the data. So I didn't have a lot of concern, one, that we were going to run into a situation where I was wrong about my expectation that 15% reduction would be enough. And I didn't have concern that additional cars were going to show up that were unexpected, because for that year's worth of data, we didn't have that problem occurring.
We're all hoping that, especially in the summer months, that, the hotel is completely full, and, there may be a possibility of too many cars for the ability to park off street there. So maybe the data is showing something different, but, I'm always looking at like the most favorable opportunity for the ownership of the motel, that they are fully occupied, especially in the summer and the holiday season, that there is no empty spaces and empty rooms in the entire place. So
That year wasn't 2020, was it?
It was not 2020. No, it was in 2024 when this
And was that average for the year, or was that during peak periods? Did you look at peak periods?
Yes, it was 12 months of data. So we, and I was able to look at month by month. So I looked at all.
And during the
entire
peak
year.
periods, it appeared to still work?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Commissioner Goldman, any questions?
No.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing and open it up to commissioner comment. Susan.
Okay. I support the project. Regarding the color of the building, apart from my personal liking the color, I think that what this color does for Coast Highway is it's another little mini gateway into where the action really starts. The HIP district action really starts at that intersection. And this building helps to catch your eye in an otherwise very bland urban scape. In addition, the building diagonally across the street and directly across Diamond Street are both gray. There's a lot of gray. So it's part of that tonal family. And so I think it helps to do just exactly what you said. It recedes on the site. I think it's really seated very well on the site. It's very handsome. It's not a black. It's green. It's green. If you say it's green, I can't tell what other color is in there, but it's a good color. In addition, this is the color we all loved for the Drake, if you remember. This is predated you. But the Drake down at the Nye intersection originally came in, I think it was with the black at the ground level, is that right? And it was light on the top, and we liked the dark so much, we said, no, do the whole thing black. And there was a little bit of, but it's turned out to be, to anchor that intersection and help to create a little spot there, a little place there. And I think this building, it's on a corner, it does the same thing. You're kind of, okay, it catches your eye, you kind of slow down, and you're entering into some action. So I support the color, apart from the snafu with the staff approval, which frankly, in and of itself, unless the city wanted to pay to repaint the building and go through that process, I wouldn't support that. So, but I just, on its own merits, I support the color. The transportation management plan, I mean, it's, this is the kind of situation that the transportation management plan was developed to address, where we have some older properties that might find some creative ways to find more rooms, which we want. We want more visitor serving hotel, motel rooms. And we need to be creative about the parking. We're creative about the parking everywhere. I mean, parking management and visitor serving are all part of are part of what we're starting to look at in advanced planning here, because we have such a demand for parking everywhere, and it's been a chronic problem. This is one way to address it, and I really look carefully at the plans and ask these questions, but I think because there's a built-in review process that I can support it, and the explanation by the owners is adequate. Regarding the art in public places, I'm an advocate for smaller projects like these projects that people pay the in lieu fee. I'd rather see them pay the in lieu fee so that we can collect some money and then have a significant art piece somewhere, instead of these little dribs and drabs that we get, scattered around the city that not many people see. If we can amass a little, bank of some real money, we could acquire a significant work of art or have a commission for a significant piece. Overall, I support the project.
Well, I do as well. I mean, I still have a little bit of qualms about the black color on Boardman Batten, but that's just a personal opinion, and it's not something I would fall on my sword over to try to hang the project up. And as an artist myself, I'm always going to advocate for public art, but that's fine too. I think Susan made a good point about the potential of taking the in lieu fee and contributing that to a larger, more significant piece of art that would really be a landmark piece for our community. So that's fine as well. So I don't really have too much more to add. It feels like you have done a good job in the application process and worked with the city and again, I know there's a little hiccup there with the color approval that that bypassed this panel, but we all make mistakes, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. So I'm going to also be supportive of the project. I can make the coastal development permit findings as well as the CEQA findings. So that's all I have to say.
Commissioner Goldman?
I'm supportive of the project as well. Steve, with regard to your question and commenting on the transportation and parking, I believe that trends have changed and rental cars have declined. I believe that statistically can be proven. With the advent of alternative transportation, primarily Uber and Lyft. I don't know how to statistically prove it here. So, I think on a global level, you look at the addition of 3 rooms to an existing 22. If you believe in transportation management overall, I think it's an easy finding to make. Nothing statistic there. It would be interesting to hear what Samantha finds out, given taking a look at the surf and sand. That said, I'm supportive of the project, and we'll vote to approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Sadler?
Regarding the interior changes, I'm fine with that. The parking issue and transportation demand management, a couple things. One, as you pointed out, the previous ownership had far fewer parking spaces, 12 or whatever, and now there's over 20. We've set up to allow this type of thing with these parking plans and allowances, and whether or not 8 bicycle spaces equals a car space, and 2 motorcycles equals a car space, and is questionable. Bicycle spaces for a hotel at all, who's going to be riding their bike to the hotel to stay there? That's a question, but whatever. It has been allowed as an option, and so we have to kind of go with that. I really didn't want to go first on this because I wanted to let my fellow commissioners speak and sway my thinking potentially. I appreciate the way they're looking at this. I went, and walked the site when this was initially noticed, whatever it was, a month or 2 ago, and it's gotten continued to this date. And because the hotel's not operational, at least it wasn't at that time, I was able to walk around the whole property and go up on all the levels and wander around and really get a good look at the building itself and at the neighborhood. And, my general takeaway was I'm looking around the neighborhood and looking for anything kind of comparable in shading of colors. And there really isn't. There is nothing that's that dark. And this is not dark. This is black. I mean, the name of this paint is Blacktop. It's black, and so and kudos to staff. I understand, problems and mistakes happen, and this was a mistake that it didn't come to us initially. But then, that staff, through the staff report, even though, they knew that there was this issue, that this, kind of got screwed up and should have come to us first, they went ahead and stuck to their guns and pointed out that they still had potential concerns about a couple of the design review criteria, number 3 and number 9, design integrity and neighborhood compatibility. And I'm really still hung up on that. I don't think the black color is neighborhood compatible. I don't think the black color is compatible with the board and batten that was done on it. If you look at the photographs, and I saw it for myself when I was out there, any of the distant photographs of this, the board and batten is lost. If you're using a lighter shade, you get some contrast there. You get shading and between the board and batten that highlights that, and it's part of why go through the process of changing the exterior design element like that and creating board and batten and then painting a color on it that gets lost. Then it just makes that go away. So I look at that and I go, it looks like a big kind of black hole or black blob. And I normally, really am reluctant to get typically super involved in a applicant's choice of colors on a building like this. And it's really pretty rare for me to kind of to look at it this way. But and the way I have to look at it as a planning commissioner is, pretend that you're coming in here the way it was supposed to happen and asking for this and asking for this change of this original stucco exterior, doing board and batten, and I want to do it black top, black paint. I wouldn't have been in favor of it, you know, so I have to kind of stick with that now and not, you know, it's completely not the applicant's fault. And it seems, you know, I don't want to be harsh and unreasonable, but thankfully, it appears that you're going to have enough support here to get your approval tonight. So thankfully, I'm not going to be the one to tip this one way or the other, but I'm not going to vote in favor of this project tonight.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and start with color, since you ended on it. You know, I kind of agree with what you're saying. I don't think if this came before us, this color would have been approved. Because if you just look at our traditional sort of philosophy on color and compatibility, we probably wouldn't have voted for this. But having said that, when by the way, I did not disclose that I met with the applicant, so I do so tardily here. By walking the project today, I thought it was quite striking, and I thought it worked. You know, and I think what they were trying to do, as a lot of the applicants do, is it's a little bit of they're trying to create a cutting edge, something that's more contemporary, something that isn't traditional, to try and create a vibe, you know, for the project. And I think they've kind of done that. And for me, you know, I was surprised that I kind of didn't mind it at all once I got up in there. I also want to say that I want to congratulate the owners for investing in this property, the detailing, the quality of the work, the remodeling they've done, the parking lot, the railings, is very high quality, very well done. And I think that should be, congratulated. To me, it comes down to the parking. And to me, this is a bit of an experiment. You know, I did quite a bit of research today on this whole parking reduction based on, Uber use, shared mobility. And as Steve Goldman pointed out, there clearly is a trend. You know, statistically, it can be proven that rental car, rentals are down and access to hotels. But it depends a lot on the hotel type. If you're a business hotel downtown, parking has dropped by like over 50% over the last, 10 years. If you're a resort out on a coast that's remote, it hasn't gone down at all. And so this is like, well, what is this one? It's kind of a tweener. And so if you take the statistics that have been demonstrated in reports and you say this is kind of in between, well, theoretically, this should enjoy about a 25% or so reduction in parking demand based on shared mobility, access. And that's about where we are if you get real about parking, bicycle parking and motorcycle parking and so forth. So this does seem to be on the edge, but probably, worth allowing to go forward because it is consistent with current trending. So on the basis of all of that, I'm supportive as well. So would somebody like to make a motion?
Is adopt Resolution 25-1035, approving Design Review 2025-1035 and Coastal Development Permit 2025-1037, and recommending City Council approval of CUP 2025-1036 and Coastal Development Permit 2025-2021, and finding said action exempt from CEQA.
Second. I'll second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Sadler?
No.
Commissioner Whiten?
Yes.
Commissioner Dubin?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Goldman?
Yes.
Chair Kellenberg?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
When are you reopening? Right.
Brian, quickly.
Good.
Thank you.
And as we talked about today, I would consider providing your maintenance staff, transit passes That wasn't on the list, but it typically is. So you might want to add that. Okay, we have exhausted the formal agenda. Are there items that staff would like to report to the commission?
No, thank you for the opportunity, but we do not have any items to report today.
Are there issues that the commission would like to ask or report to the staff?
Yeah, has there been any follow-up on the joint DRB Planning Commission meeting on the objective criteria?
So at this time, it's still out with the consultant to work on prepared revisions, and we don't have any additional drafts at this time.
I had a quick question of staff. What's the current city standard or policy regarding neon lights? I know at one point that was kind of not allowed at all, and now what's the current allowance for that?
Yeah, so neon lights themselves are not allowed. However, you do find that there's additional lighting styles and designs. So new materials are being introduced, and our code does not continue to update to reflect the new, I would say, nomenclature. So typical neon signage would be, it might be exposed. You'd have that kind of exposed lighting and the tube lighting, something else to that effect. Though we are starting to see the term neon identified, even though they're more of a conventional backlit sign. So I think that there is going to be a mix of signs that are coming to the commission for consideration that might be looking at the same traditional types of backlighting with the nomenclature neon, even though it's not the original neon kind of construction. I know it's a very odd way of putting it. Yeah.
Okay, well, I hate, I'm not, I don't want to go out of my way to call out particular businesses and stuff, but there's a business in the Hive that has exterior neon lights that are quite prominent and quite visible from Laguna Canyon Road. So I will raise that.
I think you could see them from outer space too.
There's also another one that I know we've actually mentioned over the years, and Planning Manager Vieira will remember this. It's on Coast Highway, adjacent to 2 or 3 projects that have come through the Planning Commission. It's a wall sign, and it's a plug-in, and it's neon. It's right on the exterior of the building, not even on the interior of the building. And I can't understand why somebody doesn't go there and just unplug it. But there are, I'm glad you brought that up, because there are lots of neon signs in windows. Particularly, there's seems to be a something going around with the open signs, open in neon, that is plastered right up on the glass, behind the glass. The last we knew, that was not allowed. You were allowed to have neon that was 3 or 4 feet back from the glass, but that had to go through a design review process.
Yeah, through the chair, the code provisions have not changed. And so if there is signage that has been installed without the benefit of a permit and the appropriate approvals, that would be something that would typically be a code enforcement action and outside of the purview of what we're handling here today. So private citizens, yourselves included as private citizens, can report those items for further exploration with our code enforcement division, but it would be outside of what we're handling here today.
You don't like it, you have to report it.
Right.
Okay.
This is the subcommittee.
I do have one quick question.
Yes,
I know, I'm just curious. I know that Public Works is buried in trying to get the promenade project fully underway. However, I wanted to ask if you had any update in terms of the materials and landscaping as it pertains to Fire Station 4.
So for that particular one, I actually did speak with the project manager for it, and it's intended to come back to Planning Commission for an update. And we do have it on the tentative schedule for February or March, but it's really hinging on staff being able to put those materials together, since it's been, I would say, sidelined based on some of the efforts on the promenade.
Well, I know the materials have been at least preliminarily chosen by the subcommittee in working with Public Works and other interested parties. So, but the landscape plan, I'm not sure what's transpired there, if anybody has actually paid attention to that yet or not. So, but potentially in the next few months is.
Yes, that is the expectation. So the Public Works team would be bringing an item back to Planning Commission as an update based on those prior discussions with the subcommittee. And then from there, it would be opened up to be able to identify any additional feedback and then forward it to the city manager's office for consideration. So it's something that's not completed here as a part of this hearing body, but that feedback is collected and transmitted to the city manager's office for final consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
One is not necessary. However, I think historically this body has done it. But once again, that's probably within the purview of the chair. So you can say the meeting's adjourned, or alternatively, if you would like to call for
Well,
a
we've
mo-
always done that.
You have
but-
always done
but
it, so
if I can
that's
just
why
say the meeting's adjourned. The meeting is adjourned
Okay.
until our next meeting, which is on,
And I'll second that, even though it's not necessary.
February
February
4th.
4th,
Correct.
2026. Thank you. Thank you for your attention on this.